Welcome back in, folks. Of course, this is the Financial Safari. It's your weekly show looking inside that complex financial world. And to make it a little simpler, it's time again, as we do each and every show, to check in with our local trusted advisor. And here in Birmingham, we check in with Chartered Retirement Planning Counselor Tad Hill. Folks, you can reach Tad at any time by dialing toll-free 800-929-4077. John?
Well, thank you very much, Coach Pete. And hey, Tad, how are you this week?
Doing great. It's good to be back.
Well, good. Always a pleasure to have you. Again, folks, Tad Hill, our local trusted advisor right there in the Birmingham area. 800-929-4077 is the number to call to get in touch with Tad at any point. Tad, it seems like it's impossible to go anywhere without hearing something about the election, and more importantly, the effect that the election might have on people's individual finances. What do you see as things that we need to be thinking about? Does it really matter who gets elected in terms of how it affects people's bank accounts, their retirement planning, all of that?
I don't think there's any doubt that the result of the election is going to have a big impact on things moving forward. You know, one of the biggest things that we're facing is the expiration of the Bush tax cuts that are supposed to go into effect next year. There's a lot of changes as a result of that. The income tax marginal brackets are going up. Estate taxes are going to go back to $1 million. Anything over $1 million gets taxed, and instead of at a 35% rate, at a 55% rate. Again, the marginal brackets are going up. But you said something that I want to point out. And you said, do you think that this is going to have an impact on people's specific situations? And here's what I want you to realize. That is the key point in financial planning. Your personal specific circumstances. I meet with people all the time who are very good stewards of their money, of their finances. They've done a good job of preparing for retirement. If you don't fall into that category, you never darken my door. So people that haven't been a good steward of their finances, they don't have money saved up for retirement, they don't pay attention to what's going on with investments or the economy, those people don't ever make it to see me.
Yep.
It's the ones that have done all those things that come in. But there's still a big gap in what they've done and what should be done to ensure that their retirement goes the way that they want it to. And the gap usually exists not as some fault of theirs, in my opinion. It's a fault of the people that they're getting the advice from. And here's the fault. The fault is that not enough research is done to understand that person's specific circumstances. So let me give you an example of this. I had a client, we were doing a review, and we had been, it was time for us to start generating income from their investments. We hadn't needed any money from their investments for a period of time, and now it's time to start generating income. So we're sitting down, and we are really analyzing which buckets to take the money out of. And when you look at buckets of money to pull it out of, there's really three main categories. There's taxable dollars, so you've paid tax on the money on the way in, but now everything that's coming out gets taxed, either as capital gains or interest, and they get taxed differently. But that's another thing that's going up the start of next year, is the capital gains rate is supposed to go back up. The other bucket is tax-deferred money, and then you've got tax-free money. One of the core tenets of financial planning over the last, for decades has been you spend your taxable money first, and then you spend your tax-deferred money, and then if you have to, you spend your tax-free money. But the reason for that is that you want to let your tax-deferred money grow as long as possible and benefit from that tax deferral so that you get a double whammy. One is you get the extra compounding that occurs because you're not pulling the money out and paying taxes. But the other thing is the assumption has always been that you're going to be where when you're older, a lower tax bracket or a higher one? What's the assumption always been?
Well, people always tell you that you're going to be in a lower one when you're older, but I get the feeling you're about to shoot that theory down.
Well, I'm not going to shoot it down, but here's what I will do. Here's one thing that you always get with me. If I'm guessing, I'm going to tell you that I'm guessing. The real problem when you're getting professional advice from people is if they're not willing to admit what they don't know. Well, you don't have that problem with me. I will admit to you what I don't know. And what I don't know is where we're going to be tax-wise moving forward. But here's what I do know. If you are going to get out of debt, there's really two ways to do it. Spend less or make more.
Or do both.
How are we doing as the United States government? How's the government doing in the spend less department?
Track record is not very good on that.
So even though I can't predict the future, what I will say is that when I'm sitting down and doing tax planning with you, and that's one of the things that's missing in our business is tax planning. Most conversations with people in my business is all about the investment. What's a good stock? What's a good bond? How many stars does this mutual fund have? We have to understand what we need from the money before we start investing it, and we have to understand the impact on things like our taxes. So anyway, I'm sitting down with this client. It's time to start taking money out, and we're realizing that if we do the traditional rule of thumb, that we could be creating a tax nightmare for him later in life when he gets into his 70s or 80s. He's in his early 60s now. He and his wife are both in their early 60s. And so should I just follow some financial planning rule of thumb and, know that it's, worst case scenario, nobody can get mad at me because it's the common prevailing wisdom? Or should we really sit down and understand your specific circumstances and what's exactly going on in your life and what we can expect so that we can make decisions not based upon some rule of thumb that's been in place for decades, but based upon what's likely to happen for you? Which approach would you prefer?
Conventional wisdom changes over the course of time, so sticking to what was conventional wisdom 20 or 25 years ago probably doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, not only that, but even 20 or 25 years ago, was every person in the same circumstance?
Nope.
Do you think everybody's in the same circumstance today?
Certainly not.
Of course not. So no matter whether the rule of thumb is a good rule of thumb, it still isn't going to apply to everybody. That's the difference between true problem-solving, solution-oriented approaches to things and just picking some investments. So tax planning, understanding where you are, understanding the impact of these laws. The original question was, do I think that the election is going to impact things? Well, sure I do. But for every person, those changes are going to have a different impact. If you're listening today and you'd like to know for your specific circumstances, the answers to the questions we've been asking, tax planning, how are these law changes going to affect you? Be one of the first 5 callers, and I'll set aside time on my calendar so that you can receive completely free our retirement roadmap review. We do require that you have a minimum of $250,000 of investable assets, but if so, I'm willing to do this at no cost and no obligation to you. The review takes place in our office on the corner of Valleydale and Caldwell Mill in Indian Springs, and the purpose of it is so that you can fully understand how your financial life is really structured, if there are additional strategies that you and your family could benefit from. My process is designed to ask questions that no one has ever asked you before, to uncover critical information that may have been missing in the past that needs to be part of your decision-making process, and to get the answers to these questions before we start talking about what strategies to implement. In other words, to uncover all of the must-know facts for your situation. Listen, if there's something going on in your life financially that could potentially cause you or your family real problems, either now or in the future, when would you want to find those things out? Now? Next week? 5 years from now? Never? Examples of the things that I'm talking about here, the kind of problems that I see regularly are more downside risk in your current portfolio than you were aware of. Extreme exposure to the bond bubble. This is a big one right now. Not really understanding how these potential tax changes are going to affect your circumstances. Paying too much in fees and taxes. not having a process to determine exactly what you need from your investments to sustain your lifestyle throughout retirement, or worse, already having investments that aren't designed to do it. The good news is that after going through our retirement roadmap review, you will have a clearer picture of whether any of these things are actually happening to you, and if so, what you can do to take control of your financial future, both for yourself and your family. We'll answer every single one of these questions for you and suggest strategies that are designed to create peace of mind so that you can enjoy your retirement and know that you've done all the things necessary to protect not only yourself and your spouse, but maximize your legacy to your children and grandchildren. So for the first 5 callers who call in today and have a minimum of $250,000 in investable assets, an opportunity to receive our retirement roadmap review absolutely free with no cost and no obligation.
It's a compelling offer that Tad is giving there, and the number to call is 800-929-4077. That's 800-929-4077. Tad Hill, again, is our local trusted advisor right there in the Birmingham area. He'll sit down with you, as he's just explained, and give you some common sense and straight talk instead of double talk or a sales pitch or anything like that. Again, the number, 800-929-4077. Don't waste any time. Call right now. Get that retirement roadmap customized to you, and that's really the important part. 800-929-4077. We'll talk with Tad a little bit more later on in the show, but stick around. We'll be back with more in just a moment right here on the Financial Safari.
Broadcasting from coast to coast, the Financial Safari is your source for a common sense approach to planning for a secure retirement. More and more Americans must now depend on personal savings to last them and their loved ones through retirement. Trying to save and build a financial foundation to support yourself for the rest of your life can seem like a big challenge, but there is help available.
In Birmingham and surrounding areas, call Tad Hill, president of Freedom Financial Group, 800-929-4077. That's 800-929-4077.
To find out how you can achieve a lifetime retirement income that can continue on to your loved ones once you pass away, your initial consultation is free.
Call Tad Hill, president of Freedom Financial Group, 800-929-4077. That's 800-929-4077.